TV is something we all love and cherish. We all have our favorites. Could be from the Game of Thrones, The Last of Us, maybe even The Good Place. But for Ezra and I, that show's Family Guy. One Sunday afternoon, Ezra and I were chilling on the couch, sipping our velvety hot chocolate, and cracking up as Stewie Griffin told his latest joke. But something struck us that day. We couldn't help but realize the joke was pretty racist. But that stupid joke got us thinking. Are the words, thoughts, and beliefs we have something we're born with, or something we're taught over time? We thought about the idea of nature versus nurture, and began to unpack that a little bit. Is a baby like Stewie Griffin born racist?
Are we intrinsically biased? Growing up and being from New York City, Cash and I have been around a wide variety of people, and we wondered, is it in people's nature or nurture that causes them to become essentialists? This question led us down a deep spiral of research, discussion, existential questions about human existence, and lots of speechwriting. So, let's get back to our original question.
We first thought if people naturally discriminated or not. A few common group behavior situations popped into our head. For example, if you're on the red team and you have a bunch of stickers to give out, who are you going to give stickers to? People on the red team or people on the blue team? Well, scientists from Bar-Ilan University in Israel asked 3 to 4-year-old babies this exact question. And the results prove what you're all probably thinking. If you're on the red team, you're more likely to give stickers to other people on the red team. This provides the most basic explanation for why someone may be racist. They see their own group as more preferable for whatever reason, and another group is non-preferable, and act upon that. However, we weren't satisfied with this conclusion yet. If we're all human, why do some people differentiate between these groups and others do not?
Cash and I looked at another study that showed similar results, but told us a bit more. This study involved one baby and 2 puppets. In this study, a baby chose between 2 foods, and one puppet chose the same food as the baby, whilst the other did the opposite. Then, when given the decision to play with one of the puppets, the baby chose to play with the puppet that liked the same food as themselves. What this showed us is that people naturally gravitate towards others who are similar to themselves. This confused Cash and I, though. We see all around us people gravitate towards others similarly to themselves. But what causes some people to be racist and many others not?
It was clear, based on the research we had thus far, that there's another underlying factor impacting people's racism. And we thought that could be the community and environment they're raised in. Maybe, if you're raised in a more diverse community, you're able to gain new perspectives and empathize with more people, and then be less racist, not racist at all. So, with that in mind, we kept on digging.
Cash and I looked at a study conducted by 3 UCLA researchers. This study tested the negative brain response to pictures of people of other races ranging from the least diverse to the most diverse communities. What this study showed was that people living in the least diverse communities had the highest negative brain response to those of other races, whereas those living in the most diverse communities had the least negative brain response to those of other races. What this showed us was that maybe if you grew up around a lot of different kinds of people, that at the end of the day, you don't group yourselves in with those of the same race, and rather see other races as fellow humans.
So, what's the conclusion of all the research thus far? People are not born racist. Rather, the environment and the community they're raised in greatly impacts how they perceive others. However, throughout our research, we identified another key factor that could be influencing how people perceive the world and other groups in a negative or positive light. That being our natural mechanisms of fear. Well, what does this mean exactly? Let's elaborate.
Think of this hypothetical situation. There are 3 people in the forest. All of a sudden, the bush rustles. Person 1 decides to stand still and do nothing. Person 2 runs up to the bush to check out what's going on. And person 3 runs up the tree in fear. It turns out that there was a tiger in the bush. So, audience, who survived? Person 1, 2, or 3? Exactly. Person 3.
It's in our nature to be person 3. Fear is a tool that humans have used for thousands of years to avoid getting eaten by tigers in bushes. Our fear of the tiger in the mysterious bush causes us to run up a tree and then survive. This means that our brain, through thousands of years of natural selection and people surviving deadly tiger attacks, loves shortcuts that make life easier and simpler. We can even see this today. Take this optical illusion, for example. Our brains assume, based on what we know about objects and shadows, that those two tiles would be different colors, when in reality, they're exactly the same. Now, while this illusion is fun to look at, what's the point? I mean, we don't walk around New York subways waiting for tigers to pop out of bushes, so is this natural fear mechanism we possess even something useful? If you live in the jungle, maybe, but for most of us, it can end up being more harmful than helpful. Fear of the unknown is something that largely contributes to racism and essentialism. If you don't know a lot about another group, your natural mechanism might tell you to be fearful of that and stay in your own safe bubble. While you're in this safe bubble, you might not be able to empathize with people outside and not want to explore the world around you.
During our J term, Cash and I read a book by New York Times ethicist Dr. Appiah that discussed essentialism and identity. In this book, there was a study conducted on 4-year-old kids involving social essentialism. There were 2 groups of kids, and they were told things about magical creatures called Zarpies. One group of kids was told very specific things about a Zarpie's fear or dislike, while the other group was told very general things. What was interesting, though, is that when brought back a week later, each group of kids was told that Zarpies buzzed. But the group of kids that was told very specific things initially thought that only some Zarpies buzzed, whereas the group that was told very general things initially thought that all Zarpies buzzed.
So what does this prove? It shows that people, even when given with very tiny bits of information, can make very big overgeneralizations and assumptions about entire groups. This should be somewhat alarming. Because of thousands of years of natural selection, training our brains that assumptions keep us alive, we can end up seeing our fellow humans as man-eating tigers.
So, is that it? Are we doomed? The simple answer is no. Think back to the study we looked at earlier, where people living in very diverse communities ended up being a lot less biased. Nowadays, the simple act of surrounding yourself with many different kinds of people can make you a lot less essentialist. So many people these days live trapped in their own bubbles, but it's so important that we leave these bubbles so we can be the best versions of ourselves.
Now, while what Ezra said is true, it's important also not to completely squash our natural mechanisms. The reason we don't touch a fire or we hit the brakes on a car before we hit something is because our brains have trained us to be afraid of dangerous stuff. Instead of trying to completely throw these natural mechanisms out the window, we should instead try to recognize the flaws that come with those being our tendencies to essentialize others and make overgeneralizations about other groups. Humans aren't perfect, but recognizing the flaws that come with our nature and trying to include ourselves in more communities and get more ideas can make our society a little more inclusive, one baby step at a time. Thank you.